We're going to record. We're going to record and publish it, but we're not going to do live stream until we review our security settings some more.
Very good.
So again, we'll start again. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us for our second community conversation. Our community conversations are designed to be smaller groups where we get direct feedback from our residents. So this morning, we're going to do just a brief presentation about the Walk, Bike, Drive Safety Initiative. Staff will give just a little bit of information similar to what we gave to the mayor and council on Monday night. And then we're here to hear from our residents. So we want to hear from you. So let's get started. If you'll give me 1 minute to pull up the presentation. All right. Sent it to Ryan this morning, so let me get this situated. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. Marissa, if you want to lead our presentation.
Yes, ma'am. Good morning. Again, my name is Marissa Davis. I'm the Community Safety Programs Manager with the Police Department. And we've been working on the Walk, Bike, Drive Safety Initiative. And we are all working together to try to make our town as safe as possible for all people who travel throughout our town. So we'll just give you an update of where we've been. Yep. So I'll take that. That's our main goal is just to make sure that everyone is safe within our town. May I have the next slide, please? Okay. So we broke our objectives down into 4 E's, which are education, environmental enhancement, engineering, and enforcement. The education component increases the awareness of safe walking, biking, and driving practices and behaviors. The environmental enhancement timely assesses and corrects infrastructure hazards to maintain a safe environment for all modes of travel. The engineering, it designs public spaces and roadways to provide the greatest protection for the most vulnerable populations and mobilities. And enforcement, we utilize all the methods of traffic enforcement to discourage speeding, aggressive driving, impaired driving, distracted driving, as well as other traffic violations. The next one. So far, we have some things set up around town, and I also would love to have feedback from anyone in the town if you think that there is a place that I can go along with my team to offer education to people. We work well as a team, so if you have ideas, I'm open to taking them. So far we've held a talk, if you will, with a Head Start program. We talked to them about crossing the street, how to call 911. Being kind to their friends and respectful to others. It was really a great time. Obviously, we're having our community conversations today, and we have ongoing public information campaigns that will talk about speed limits and driving and walking and biking safety. We have several programs coming up at the beginning of the year. Take the next slide, please.
And I'll chat a little bit about the engineering or environment and engineering component. The environment is assessing the conditions of our infrastructure and responding to correct things. Engineering is designing things so They provide the greatest level of safety for all modes of transportation. We have 13 planned improvements, and 3 projects are active right now. Funding for these projects come from a variety of sources. So we have general fund dollars, but we also utilize federal dollars through the Community Development Block Grant Program. The town's been successful for the last probably 4 or 5 years, in receiving grants from the county is who administers the CDBG funds. As well as we have American Rescue Plan Act dollars that can be used for these types of projects. And the town has, if you could go back briefly, the town has contracted with robotics to conduct an assessment of our roads. So all that's digitized. The staff have presented on that in public meetings before, and we continually work to improve our assessment of our infrastructure. And then we take projects to the council as recommendations. Just the other night, the council authorized me signing a contract with one of our engineering firms for just shy of $90,000 to do the engineering on projects for this fiscal year. Next slide, please. And we had used this slide the other night in discussion with the council. We also had one of our engineers at that meeting, and talking about the types of crosswalks that we can have, and adopting a standard and having the same standard across the town. That would be over time. Serviceable or usable crosswalks would not be replaced immediately, but all replacements and new crosswalks would be the Continental design. We had asked if there was a preference, and overwhelming, the council said follow the direction of our engineers. And the engineer that we had on the other night said it's best to go with a Continental style. And that was even after presenting photographs of projects they've worked on, where there were at least 2 different styles in those photos. And the engineer said oftentimes it becomes local preference, but the engineer's recommendation is to go with a Continental. So that's what the town's going to follow. And then we talked about our pedestrian signage and vehicle signage. And we do want to make sure that we don't result in sign clutter or confusing signage. But as we spoke with the council about in preparation for the current year budget, staff believe that we need to improve our signage. So the photographs here are illustrative of the types of signs that we're getting. They may not look exactly like these, but the solar powered flashing signs is going to be a common theme. And we're working out the exact dollar amount, but as mentioned the other night to the mayor and council, we will be requesting to use additional American Rescue Plan Act funds for additional signage. The current budget, we have about $118,000 to improve signage, but these flashing signs cost nearly $2,000 a sign. And so Director Lewis, who's unable to be with us today, she is working through those details and will be presenting an update to the mayor and council on the amount of additional dollars that we plan to use for more signs on December 20th. The work session this month is not on a Monday, it's on a Tuesday. Next slide then, Ms. Barnes. And then we're also incorporating into the plans the strategic use of raised crosswalks. The engineer provided some insight on that as well. And so signage and crosswalks and raised crosswalks are all tools that we have available to us to improve the environment and follow good engineering principles in using the most effective tools for the given circumstance. So the same tool won't work at every intersection, or won't be recommended at every intersection by the engineers. Ms. Barnes. And then this takes us into our last E. And so I'm going to hand this back to Marissa to talk about the enforcement efforts.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So over the last 2 weeks, we've begun more patrolling over at Riverdale Park Station, and 19 citations were issued and 15 written warnings. There are also verbal warnings and counselings, if you will, that have been had by officers and people driving through the community over there. Can I have the next slide, please? This is the accident enforcement data from October 1st through November 30th. We had 90 accidents that had property damage only, 27 accidents with injuries, 40 hit and run accidents, and there were 3 driving under the influence arrests. Those were from car accidents. So this is I think for me definitely a very impactful slide to see that this is why we are really working so hard to make sure we're being very proactive with walking and biking and driving safety to try to reduce these numbers. If we can have the next slide, please. All right, that's it. Yeah.
Right, so we've given a brief update on some of the efforts. The town certainly is working on a lot of other things as well with regard to walk, bike, drive. This was just a snippet, an update from what we've been doing over the last few months. But at this point, we want to hear from our residents. We'd like to hear about what's happening in your neighborhood, get some feedback on some of the information we provided and any input you might have on things you'd like to see. Go ahead, Leo. Thank you.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
So first, I just wanted to thank you guys for coming out and talking about this. Also wanted to note that I do attend the meetings, the town meetings, but unfortunately because of childcare responsibilities, it's usually the next day. But I did have the pleasure to hear from the traffic engineer and all the great stuff, and just wanted to thank you for pushing these things. I know having talked to neighbors, many of whom have kids here, they're really interested in this topic, and even if some of them couldn't attend tonight, they really do appreciate the work that you guys are doing. So I did want to thank you for that. I wanted to bring up a couple things that I had heard from that past meeting and some of the things that you guys just mentioned. First of all, thank you for bringing up the crime statistics. I had heard that the 40 hit and runs were mostly on Kenilworth and Route 1, but obviously with the weather changing and the traffic patterns being as they are, that's something that certainly could affect our community, and I think people just need to be aware of it, especially on Route 1 where we have a lot of University Park students, children going over to College Park Academy in the morning. You see a lot of them walking across Route 1, and of course that's something that many people worry about is any possibility for a traffic incident there. I did want to just bring up also the yellow lines on Woodbury that I had heard about. That I think that sounds like a really great idea. I forget who it was, if it was Councilman Smith or the traffic engineer, noted that, you know, right after that stop sign and speed hump, you kind of see that big stretch of road there, and it's really just tempting to take off. And so I think that that idea to putting those lines in and kind of giving people sort of a little bit better understanding of where they fit in the road will have an impact. I also wanted to note something that I just noticed on my daily commute. Coming out of the alleys, we have a lot of people who don't observe the traffic lines, the parking lines. And why this matters is that visibility becomes a big issue. So for instance, coming out of the alleys, something as basic as just being able to see that a car is coming. So when I come out of an alley, for instance, and a car is parked far ahead of the traffic lines, which are, I think, in place for a reason, you can't really see who's coming towards you. And so just obviously this is something to do with the road transfer, but when it comes to the point of enforcement, maybe something to note, because some of those existing measures are not being observed, so it can cause issues. Just having people observing those so that people are taking note of the existing measures to prevent accidents. And that was a big one. And then also, of course, the speed humps, if there's any update on that, of course, there's a lot of interest in having additional traffic calming measures that will actually slow down. I know this traffic engineer talked for a while about the differences between the speed hump, speed table, speed bump. If there's any specifics on when that will actually be, if that was sort of a signal that, you know, maybe he's looking at sort of which one to choose, or if you could just tell us if that's, you know, obviously the road transfer is part of that, but if there's any additional movement, that would be helpful. But thank you. That was a lot, but I just wanted to chime in. Thank you.
And Ms. Barnes, I can respond to part of that. So in terms of the road transfer, Director Lewis mentioned in her last update to the HOA board and the community that she'll provide monthly updates. So we will have a December update in terms of anticipated timeline. And as it relates to the traffic improvements in Riverdale Park Station, the report is in. I believe it includes the installation of a number of, and I'm not sure if they're speed humps or bumps, but that's in the plan. And so that they will be included in what we are sending out for bid. And the estimate that we received from the engineering company is just shy of $40,000. And those improvements are included in our plan.
Great, thank you. Thank you, John. Do we have any other questions, comments? Thanks. Dan, please go right ahead.
Hi, good morning. Thank you all for the presentation. I echo what Leo said about just thank you for all the work you all are doing to make things safer. I personally really like living in Riverdale Park, partly because it's so walkable and bikeable, and just seeing things improved is even better. I just wanted to share a couple of comments. I think I've shared some of these with you all before, but the one thing that I've been talking about with some of my neighbors is the intersection of Rhode Island and Oliver Street, where the trolley trail connects. There's kind of a bend there, and it's pretty common, particularly at night, for people to kind of just totally blast through that intersection. And they can't really see pedestrians coming off of Oliver because of the trees. So there's been a couple of times where, you know, friends or family have been crossing in that crosswalk and somebody comes through that intersection at 30 miles an hour without stopping. I think that kind of goes to the comment about the upgrades to signs. I think that's great, but I honestly don't think that people don't know there's a don't know that there's not a stop sign there. I think they're just ignoring it and only stopping when they see a conflict. So I don't know if that's something a sign would fix versus some sort of other intervention. But in any case, just wanted to highlight that because again, it's been something that several folks in my neighborhood have commented on. And then I think I agreed with everything Leo said about Riverdale Park Station. The one thing I just would reiterate, I think, again, I mentioned this before, is it would be great to see the bike lane restored. I know that was a condition for the development, and it's been missing for 3 years after Burton installed parking in the bike lane. They're not compatible uses. So if you're trying to use the bike lane, you can't bike there if there's a car there. And the way that those lanes constrict at that point, it is a pretty dangerous place for people to try to merge back into traffic. It's not enough room for 2 cars to pass in the 2 lanes that are supposed to be there. And then I think I've also kind of shared some information. I agreed with everything Leah said about just making sure that there's daylight at intersections and being able to see and the illegal parking there. So I think there's some no parking signs that for some reason were placed past the stop signs, which don't make any sense. So people are parking past where the stop sign and stop line are. And I think there's also a couple missing stop signs at Riverdale Park Station. So there's one from the parking garage near District Taco that was removed. And I don't know if it's intentional or not, but there is that intersection coming up towards the Denizens area where it's only a 3-way stop. I don't know if that is intentional or not. So there's not a stop sign on westbound Van Buren Street. So that, I think that is in some ways helpful because I think people get confused and some people stop and some people don't, but I don't know if that was intentionally a 3-way stop or if there's a missing stop sign there when they built the pilot house. And then the last thing I'll share is I was excited to hear about the development at Chambers Funeral Home. And so I just would encourage the town, if there's any way with that development, I know that's years out, to kind of fix that intersection with Madison and Cleveland and make that less of a Y and more of a, somehow make it more of a 90-degree angle. I think that would help a lot. Those 2 gas stations, or gas station and car rental place, have basically eliminated all of the curb between Madison and Baltimore Avenue. And so there's a fair amount of cut through traffic. I know cones were put up for Jay's Auto, but I think when that new business opens, that's going to open up again, and I anticipate people are going to be cutting through there again. So just some observations, but again, overall, just really appreciate all the effort you all are putting into making things safer around town.
Thank you, Dan. Ifyak, would you like to go ahead?
Sure, thank you. Appreciate the effort on this. Echo a lot of the comments that have already been shared. I guess for sure, I think that intersection that's missing on Van Buren was there. I think the pilot house construction, it was dropped and then it's never been restored. I know the HOA has been raised at multiple times. I think almost everyone on the board has had an instance where we almost were hit by a car that was just kind of speeding through there and they didn't have a stop sign. So that's an issue. The part, one thing I was just interested is, I know the town center, I know there's talk of the trolley trail and sort of how it will extend through the parking lot, through it's that awkward intersection where the farmer's market is now. I don't know if it'd be great to know the progress of that redevelopment is, or if that's being held up by the pending development on Queensbury on those corners. But that intersection is from a biking perspective is extremely problematic, as we all know. So just want to make sure that that's either prioritized, or is there some mitigating solution that we can do in the meantime to try to make it so that you don't have cars dump into a parking lot and with through traffic coming on. I guess it's Rhode Island Avenue, the backside of Rhode Island Avenue. And then I just lastly would say the speed humps and some of the traffic in sort of Riverdale Park Station. I'm glad to see that we have a traffic engineer who's looking into it. I know I emailed sort of a proposal for like an alternative traffic pattern. Was wondering if there's any update on that, if that's been considered, if there's feedback. Would love to have a conversation about it if possible. That's it. Thank you.
Ms. Barnes,
you.
would you like me to
Certainly.
provide some information on that? Thanks for your information and your inquiries. So on the traffic pattern that has been presented to the town's traffic engineer, and we will have an update. I don't know exactly what they determined, but Director Lewis has had extensive discussions with the traffic engineer on this, and we can present that to as part of our update to the council on the 20th. As for the realignment of the town center, so the town received $850,000 in state funds for the realignment of the trolley trail and moving things more efficiently through that area. That's a very difficult intersection. It's not just the road and the trolley trail, but it's also the railroad tracks, and then it's the intersection immediately to the east with Lafayette and Natoli, and so it's a bit complicated. So we will be having some public discussions over what the town center parking lot may look like. But we will be moving forward on design possibilities and taking those to the council in the next few months. We have $250,000 appropriated this fiscal year of the $850 for the design work. And so we would be looking at improvements after we have the improved design. We're not holding things up because of the proposed development of the apartments on the southwest corner of Queensbury and Rhode Island. We are in discussions with the developer over any improvements that the town may require, or assistance with improvements that the town may require with the realignment of roads and that. A few meetings ago, staff presented an idea to the mayor and council, and that is for the at the same time that we're putting the design together for the trolley trail and the central, or I'll call it the central town center parking lot. The concept of realigning Lafayette and Natoli, where we have Maple Bunch Park, and working through those issues. Those have been talked about for a considerable period of time. And the concept was floated to the council about taking up to 1.5 million in American Rescue Plan Act funds to put towards our walk, bike, drive safety initiative projects generally, and a large portion of that may go to that project. But we first have to understand what potential designs are. So Director Lewis is working with our engineer to determine some options, and we'll be bringing those options back to the mayor and council and the community to say, here's some options of how that can be replumbed. So there's a lot going on right now as it relates to improving what we have and making sure we have signage and speed bumps and crosswalks and all those things. But at the same time, we're also looking at, we're doing more than looking at, we funded, that the town council has funded improvements and allocated dollars to make really significant change. These things are going to take time. One, to get consensus and input from the community on types of things they would like to see, but also to make sure that we have the financing lined up from A to Z to be able to pull these projects off. I will say, I mentioned during the presentation that we look at a variety of funding sources. The CDBG funds, we just submitted an application yesterday for $400,000 in federal dollars. And that would tie to what we're talking about here, but it would be sidewalk improvements going south on Lafayette from Queensbury, all the way down to Madison, an area where we're looking at a joint project with the town of Edmundston to have a cut through the little park-like area. Staff are using the term of Mount Rose for Adam Plummer. His home was in an area that's now an industrial park there. And there's a pollinator project, garden project that's already funded to go on adjacent land there. And now the conversation is, how are we going to connect those improvements to the town center? And so the staff recommendation, if we get the funding, is going to be both a bike lane and widening the sidewalks, because the sidewalks there are very narrow. In some sections, the sidewalks are under 30 inches. And so we have lots of opportunities for improvement. I'll say it that way. But I think we're making good progress. I hope that answers some of your questions, sir.
No, it does. It does. And is there a running list of all these items? I think it would be helpful, at least as we try to spread the word, that that folks don't feel like they're being lost. Like, if it's on the website, it'd be good to point folks to, hey, these are the 15, 20 different areas or projects that the town's considering. That might be helpful.
Yes. So Ms. Barnes, perhaps we take everything that we've presented and that's in the hopper, if you will, or in the pipeline. And so we can create a graph of what's in the pipeline and where it is in the pipeline. And that would be a good thing for the community to know. I appreciate that recommendation.
Got it. I'm taking notes as we're chatting now. We will also have an update in just a couple months on all of the CIP projects as part of our FY 2024 budget process. So just a preview of that to come. I see Leo has oh, I'm sorry, Mayor Thompson, you have your hand raised.
There was, I believe there's a presentation to Mayor and Council sometime in the last 4 or 5 months of the road projects that were proposed. And so that could, I don't have a link to it right now, but I think that's available to distribute immediately, and that'd be a good idea. One other question, Mr. Town Manager, can you sort of touch on any funding opportunities there might be through the Federal Infrastructure Act? I've been asked about that.
Yes, so we have not moved to secure any funds there, but I think that some of our projects would be eligible. And so I think working with, it's actually, I think you and I need to work on that, sir. I try to stay out of my involvement with elected officials outside of the town. But I think that there's opportunities for the town through the mayor and myself with the staff at the federal level to try to bring in federal dollars for a lot of our projects. And because our projects are eligible for those funds.
All right. Leo, I'm sorry, Mayor Thompson, did you have anything else you'd like to add? Okay, perfect. Ifiak, I just sent you that presentation. That was the beginning of October that outlines all of the projects for fiscal year 2023. If anyone else would like to just receive that directly, it is on our website, but I'm happy to email it directly to you. So just let me know. Leo.
And Ms. Barnes, can you put the link to that in the chat?
Certainly can. Yes, I can do that. While I'm doing that, Leo, did you want to go ahead and start with your comments?
Sure. Just a quick follow-up on the visibility side. I wanted to note, this is more of, again, just sort of enforcement of existing traffic calming or traffic enforcement. I've noticed a couple times that the commercial vehicles up on the commercial side tend to park their vehicles right out front. There are a couple of examples of this, the most egregious of which I would say would be FedEx, where especially during rush hour, you have a truck parked outside, sometimes for a couple hours, and a lot of individuals trying to get around and can't really see where they're going. And I note this because, you know, you have La Phantom and a couple other businesses now propping up there. Foot traffic is growing. But just in general, on the commercial side, if that's something, and possibly the HOA has already brought this up, but just more of like situational awareness for you guys as the roads transfer, as you have more enforcement power, it might be a conversation worth having with the commercial side as just how to best position their commercial vehicles so that they're still able to get in, but it's less obstructive to individuals trying to get to and from their homes or even just through the community. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Leo. Do we have any other comments or questions? All right.
And Ms. Barnes, I don't know if you had noticed Councilmember Lingua joined, so I just wanted to acknowledge that that he's here as well.
Good morning, Councilman Lingua. Mayor
Good
Thompson.
morning.
Thank you for joining us today. I know it's quite early. Thank you. Thank you.
No, sorry, I was out running some errands and I got back a little later than I'd hoped. So, but
Understood.
did want to listen in and hear what folks have to say.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Mayor Thompson, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, so since the engineer's presentation about speed humps and speed bumps and speed tables and raised crosswalks, and then I've been paying a little bit more attention to when I'm driving around to what it feels like to go over each one. And I discussed this with the town manager, I believe this Tuesday.
Yes.
We have a regular discussion. And I was driving on Sligo Creek Parkway in Montgomery County, where there were a lot of speed humps, and found that it was pretty easy to go over most of those at 20 or 25 miles an hour. You know, it was a little bit of a bump, a little bit uncomfortable, but not too bad, which is a bit higher than the engineer had said. In driving through a residential area of Tacoma Park, then there was a very strange construction, which was sort of like a speed hump with a little speed bump on top of it. So it was like this strange curvature with a very tight top on it. And that one, yeah, that was, you had to go slow over that one. It was really required. And then the most interesting thing to me was that I was driving through, let me get the location. I think it was Southeast DC, Southeast DC. And there were speed humps that looked identical to other speed humps that I'd been driving over. that really you couldn't go faster than 15 miles an hour. 15 miles an hour was a little bit uncomfortable. So I think that there may be some details of construction and engineering design and so on for the different controlling what they call vertical controls that we may need to pay a lot of attention to. And just wanted to bring that up and to encourage everyone else when they're driving around to sort of pay attention to that and find some good examples of speed controls. So that's all. Thanks.
I would agree. That presentation made me also pay a lot of attention to the different types of speed humps, speed bumps, speed tables that are out there. And there's a lot of great examples that we can draw from. That's the best part of the municipal world, is we like to borrow and share. And so please, if you're out and about, please let us know what you see and what seems to work. There's some hybrid approaches, it sounds like, that have varying levels of success in slowing people down. So that is certainly something that we'd like to hear from all of you about. One other thing I just wanted to mention, we did not mention this in our presentation about the education component, but I think it's important to say that the staff team takes absolutely every opportunity to educate residents and visitors to the town and folks who are crossing through the town about the values that we have, especially related to the Walk, Bike, Drive Safety Initiative. Every conversation, whether folks are happy or unhappy, is an opportunity to talk about why we do these things and why it's important to our community. And I know that I could speak for everybody on the team. There's a lot of different examples where we have taken a lot of time to just really let folks know about what our expectations are for our community and what's important to our community. So that is something that we take very seriously. I find that's a pretty important part of our educational component here. And that is something that doesn't always get recognized, but that's something that we 100% do, from the police officers who are out writing tickets to the calls we get about the speed camera tickets, or even the complaints we receive from residents about what's happening in their neighborhood or things that are important to them. So that's something we take much pride in. We do that very frequently, and despite sometimes getting unhappy results or comments, we do the same on Facebook. We on all of our social media platforms, we continue to educate folks about what's important to our community. So that is a piece that maybe that isn't the glitzy or the part that you see, but it is something that happens, I would say, daily. Marissa, am I wrong in that? Probably more than once a day. We do have those discussions.
Absolutely, definitely more than once. I'd even say more than 10 times a day. But it's something that we all take very seriously. We're all very passionate about, like you said, from the officers to the call takers to people on the town hall side. Everyone, even in public works, I overheard a conversation with a resident. So we all take it very seriously, and I think we're all trying to do our part to just keep everybody safe. And there's just no other way to say it. We just want to keep everyone safe, however you travel about. That's our number one goal.
So, and Jessica, I really appreciate you bringing that up. And but now I have an ask. Because there are, right now, I think we have 49 staff, counting me. But in getting this message out, we use the tools that we have. But now I think the ask is for everyone on the call and everyone in your sphere of influence to help share this message. There used to be a shampoo commercial many years ago. I can't remember the brand, but it would say, and then you tell two friends, and so on, and so on, and so on. And so that's really how we're going to help modify behavior, because a lot of what we're doing with the engineering and the environment and enforcement and education, trying to modify behavior. And so highlighting this, sometimes the message is better received from others, from someone familiar to someone. It's one thing for a town staff member to say, we really need you to slow down. It's another for a mother or a father to say to their children, this is why we go slow. And to say to their counterparts in the PTA, these are important values for our community. And we all have to join in this because we all have a part in this as we move about in the community. And so my ask is that we all share to whatever degree we can the same message because we're all living the same values. So I do have that ask. So I appreciate the opportunity to make it.
I'm sorry, Mayor Thompson, did you unmuted?
I did, but Ifyak has had his hand up for a little while, so I thought he could speak first.
My apologies, Ifyak, please go right ahead.
No problem at all. And town manager position, I appreciate the words and talking to folks. I do think that as progress is being made and people see the improvements, I think those conversations naturally happen. And so it is a good sort of circle of life of, it's not the right word, but like, it sort of feeds into each other of like people see improvements and conversations happen on why are we doing this and sort of the value of it, for sure. The only other thing that I want to talk about that we haven't necessarily spoke that much about is sort of bike lanes. I know I've seen this is the county's work on sort of River Road and a part of like the Purple Line bike lane projects that they've done. Are there any other sort of bike lane specific projects the town is sort of considering, whether it's repaving or anything else? I'm sort of curious about that. And then the last thing is, it hasn't been brought up as much, but literally on like the trolley trail past Riverdale Park Station as you get to Queensbury, as you get to College Park, there are like, I think 2 or 3 lights that are solar powered that I'm not sure who exactly owns them. I've talked to like Kate Fritz, and I think they've like replaced the battery at some point, but with turnover happening, I'm curious sort of who's responsible for it, mainly because I think right now they're not turning on. So there is a like complete blackout from pretty much Woodbury to College Park on that path. So curious on who's responsible for it moving forward right now. And is there any talk or plan of maybe having more permanent lights, or I guess powered lights the same way the rest of the trolley trail is, instead of the solar powered ones?
So Ms. Barnes, if I can address those, at least as best as I can. So in terms of the lights, we'll work backwards. Those lights are not in town. The town boundary there doesn't extend far beyond the alley that's owned by the HOA. And so you have the old WMATA property that's where the town boundary basically is. We extend maybe 40 feet onto the WMATA property, I think. No, the mayor's, it's less than 40. Okay. And, so I believe K-Fritz actually installed those lights initially. But they are not in town. So that they would be in College Park. And Ms. Barnes, we can make a note to reach out to College Park and we'll notify them that we received a concern about lights in their jurisdiction. And it may be MNC PPC that is responsible now, but we will make sure all the players are advised. And as for improvements to bike lanes, so on River Tech Court, we have the road markings, but now we are going to be putting down some curbing, and there's going to be some bollards installed as well. And I think there's opportunities for road markings on a lot of our streets, even though the streets are narrow. And so wherever we can put road markings, I think that's a good thing to do. And even if it's not a dedicated lane, because of the amount of real estate we have, indicating to folks that it's we have bicyclists and it's good to share the road. So if anyone in the biking community has thoughts on where we should do this, then I think we need to hear that. And I would go so far as to say, perhaps we need to have a work group of bicyclists who frequently bike our roads to talk about what routes make the most sense. And I did recently purchase a bicycle. I've ridden it twice in the last 6 months, but I think we need to hear from those who rely on or enjoy bicycle transportation. And so we will work together to perhaps formalize a separate conversation on what bike routes make sense in town. And then when we present projects to the council, then we can say that this isn't just staff saying this, but we're working with avid bicyclists in town, and here's what we're hearing from them. Does that help in figuring this out?
Helps me. Yeah, I'm already branding it. So.
Oh, okay, great. Great.
That's great.
So I'm going to jump in on the bike lanes. I'll start with the bike lanes and go back to the communicating to other people what our values are. So I saw a multi-city, multi-country study that was published relatively recently, a summary of that on my Mastodon account. And I don't always trust these summaries. I haven't chased it down yet, but it was a little bit sobering in that it said that the paint-only markings did nothing to improve safety for anybody. It said that sharrows were actually counterproductive, but that the physical barriers, dedicated bike lanes, improved all sorts of accidents by, I think it was 30 or 40% in the places that they were put in. So this is something that, as I said, I need to chase down on. These summaries aren't always as correct as or interesting even sometimes as they sound. So need to verify that. But it is something to look up and keep in mind as we're planning. And the other thing I'll just mention about sort of convincing other people to obey our to pay attention to our values to improve safety is that I have been known on occasions where someone is behind me and driving aggressively. So if I'm driving along River Tech Court and they are a little bit closer to my bumper than I want them to be, to sort of remind them that this is a congested area by driving absolutely the speed limit. And often they will follow me down towards my house down Lafayette, and I'll stay on Lafayette much longer than I might have. And I come to a full stop at each of the stop signs. And part of this is just letting people know this is not a good place to cut through. You're going to get behind some old guy who's, driving like he's doing a horse and carriage, and maybe you should consider going some other direction if you really want to drive quickly. So I encourage everyone to scrupulously follow the traffic regulations, especially if someone who's driving a little bit aggressively is behind you, and that might discourage them from driving through our neighborhoods, cutting through our neighborhoods.
Mayor Thompson, we support those efforts. We also, as staff, do the very same thing. So thank you. Thank you. I think Marissa had her hand up, and then Councilman Lingua.
Thank you. And Mr. Mayor, I do the same thing. And just a reminder, it is a school zone. So we have, children, trying to go to school, and they should be safe doing so. But I put my email in the chat, and I just wanted everyone to know I'm taking notes on, you know, suggestions and ideas and areas of concern. But if anyone has anything, if they want to email it to me, I share it amongst the group, and you know, we add people's feedback. Again, all the idea we brainstorm together. So you may have an idea that we just haven't thought of yet, and we are not opposed to using it. It's whatever we can do to ensure the safety of the town. And you may have an idea we just have not thought about yet. So please, if you have any ideas or suggestions, I put my email in the chat, and I would love to hear from you.
All right, Councilman Lingua.
Thank you very much, Ms. Barnes. To the mayor's point about, you know, following the rules of the road, very understandable, and I agree with that. At the same time, being that we're have a contractor on who's advising us on what improvements we could make, I think one of the things that we could also possibly be looking at is along with the other municipalities as well, bordering us, is improving the main thoroughfares and the flow of traffic through those areas, and try and get it so that people who are essentially traversing through the municipalities, because they're going from one point to another, be that work or a business or whatever, or home, find that, you know, taking Route 1, taking 410 is actually quicker. And this might be a coordinated effort with neighboring municipalities to have these conversations with SHA, as well as our own conversations with SHA, regarding about how we can improve, say, for example, the intersection of Queensberry and Route 1, so that we can get away from the daily occurrence, which I'm sure folks are all too familiar with, of the blocked intersection when the light changes. I feel that there's probably a possibility out there, a fairly good possibility out there, of being able to address that issue. So it is greatly reduced, if not no longer an issue, as well as dealing with traffic flow there along at Riverdale Road and Kenilworth Avenue and 410 and Kenilworth Avenue. With the Purple Line coming in, that's going to become a fairly well traversed area, and I think it would be good for us to start finding ways now, even if they're just rough projections, on how to address that, lest we start seeing, which I'm not really sure, but more assuming, cut through coming in through that lower part of Ward 6, and then coming up through 54th, and then on to either up to Riverdale Road, trying to either go eastbound or westbound. That is if, you know, that area and the flow of traffic through there, in conjunction with a light rail stop there, is not figured out in a ready fashion. So that's my thought on how we can also address cut through traffic in town by just what the mayor was saying, realizing, you know, folks around here, it's pretty much they stop at stop signs and they're following what the speed limit is, and actually 410 and Route 1 through this area is pretty quick, so there's no really point in getting off there unless I want to go somewhere to a shop or something.
Certainly. Thank you, Councilman Lingua. I think we've determined there's lots of pieces to this puzzle, and we all are playing important roles. Every one of us. It sounds to me like Councilman or Mayor Thompson's way of handling traffic is well practiced by others, and I think we all are committed to making Riverdale Park a safe place for everyone. And so I did want to thank everybody for coming today. I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I know this is a very busy time of year, but thank you for giving us your time and your input on this really important topic. We'll be meeting again on January 21st for another community conversation. We're planning for that conversation to likely be about the fiscal year 2024 budget, the process, and getting some feedback from residents prior to the proposed budget being prepared and submitted to the mayor and council. So please mark your calendar for January 21st. It'll likely be you won't be running errands and doing all these busy things on a Saturday morning, maybe. But again, thank you so much for your time. Your input is so valuable and we greatly appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Have a great Saturday.
Thanks to everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Recording, Ms. Barnes.